Patch 14.9 will be released tomorrow. Today I want to talk about all the changes. Let's start with buffs. Amumu, base attack damage increased by 4, base armor increased by 3. Karma, slow increased from 35% to 40%. R plus E AoE shield increased from 90% to 100%. R plus E AoE bonus haste increased from 12% to 15%. Malzahar, Q mana cost changed from 80 flat to 60 scales to 80. E cooldown decreased from 15 scales to 7 to 11 scales to 7. Sejuani, passive resist increased from 10 plus 50% bonus to 10% plus 75% bonus. W damage adjusted from 30 scales to 210 plus 8% max health to 10 scales to 130 plus 12% max health. Seraphine, Q AP ratio increased from 50% to 60%. Next we got nerfs. Ari, W damage decreased by 5 at all levels. R cooldown increased from 130 scales to 80 to 130 scales to 100. Aelion Soul, EAP ratio decreased from 100% to 80%. Belweth, passive attack speed decreased from 0.28 scales to 1% from level 1 to 13 to 0.28 scales to 1% from level 1 to 17. Q damage decreased from 10 scales to 30 plus 110% total attack damage to 10 scales to 30 plus 100% total attack damage. Q monster modifier changed from 140% total damage to plus 45 scales to 85 flat damage. Blitzcrank, passive shield duration decreased from 10 seconds to 4 seconds. W move speed reduced from 70 scales to 90% to 60 scales to 80%. Evelyn, W slow decreased from 65% to 45%. R AP ratio decreased from 75% to 65%. Jinx, R cooldown increased from 70 scales to 40 to 85 scales to 45. Cassadin, E AP ratio decreased from 80% to 70%. Master Yi, E damage reduced by 10 at all levels. Olaf, Q damage reduced by 5 at all levels. Q monster modifier increased by 5 scales to 25. R passive resist decreased from 10 scales to 30 to 10 scales to 20. Pike, W mana cost increased from 50 to 65. W Q cooldown increased by 2. Skarner, mana regeneration growth increased from 0.6 to 0.75. Q damage decreased from 10 scales to 70 to 10 scales to 50. W slow changed from 20 scales to 40% to 20% flat. W shield decreased from 9% max health to 8% max health. Talia, Q mana cost increased by 10. Q bonus monster damage AP ratio reduced from 10% to 5%. Twitch, health decreased from 682 plus 100 to 630 plus 104. R bonus attack damage reduced from 40 scales to 70 to 30 scales to 60. W slow AP ratio decreased from 6% AP to 5% AP. Urgot, armor growth reduced from 5.45 to 5. Next we got changes. Akshan, Q move speed changed from 20 scales to 40% to 20%. Q non-champion damage decreased from 40 scales to 90% to 40 scales to 80%. Minimum R damage increased from 20 scales to 30 plus 10% total attack damage to 25 scales to 45 plus 15% total attack damage. Maximum R damage increased from 80% scales to 120% plus 40% total attack damage to 75 scales to 135% plus 45% total attack damage. Nila, Q active damage total attack damage reduced by 10% at max rank with 10% less critical strike chance. Q active attack speed increased from 10 scales to 50% by level to 10 scales to 60% by level. Janna, W damage changed from 55 scales to 195 plus 30% bonus move speed and 60% ability power to 55 scales to 175 plus 30% move speed plus 50% AP. E shield increased from 80 scales to 220 to 80 scales to 240. Last but not least we have items. Death Dance, attack damage increased from 55 to 60, heal on kill increased from 50% bonus attack damage to 75 bonus attack damage. Build pass now requires pickaxe. Eclipse, melee max health damage decreased from 8% to 6%. Hex Drinker, magic resist decreased from 35 to 30. New build pass requires longsword. Ma of Malmortius, extra 15 haste added, attack damage increased from 65 to 70, magic resist decreased from 50 to 40, price increased by 300 gold, lifeline effect changed from 12% lifesteal to 10% omnivamp, lifeline shield increased from 2.5 seconds to 3 seconds, Sundered Sky, cooldown increased from 6 seconds to 8 seconds, heal based on base attack damage decreased from 140% base attack damage to 120 base attack damage, Steraks Gauge, price increased from 3000 to 3200, lifeline cooldown increased from 60 seconds to 90 seconds. Feel free to share what you think about these changes in the comments down below, leave a like, subscribe, and see you in the next video.